Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
It seems the only way to beat Aaron Johnsong is for him to, well, not show up. As we look at timing and scoring, it appears that we are Aaron Johnsong-less, but you do have the drop weeks to worry about. The Kellymoss KLÜB iRacing Championship rolls into Austin, Texas for some good barbecue, a little bit of two-step, and the Circuit of the Americas. Hi, everybody. I'm Jeremy Scott. Tristan Herbst is alongside. Jim Cunningham is sampling our barbecue back in the truck, giving you the pictures and sound live and in Memorex. Tristan, my only memory of coming here to COTA was it being roasting hot. It feels, but it's not the one racetrack where I've been on the surface of the sun. That comes later on in the season. Either way, we're expecting a barn burner of a race here at the Circuit of the Americas.
Yeah, absolutely. 29 degrees Celsius on track temp. That's probably one of the highest we've seen so far in our season of racing. And we're around about halfway through our calendar here at the Kellymoss KLÜB iRacing Championship. Round 4 at COTA and another 4 rounds to come after that. And we've also got the points for you of the current standings throughout our 4 divisions. And remember, those 4 divisions will be mentioned to you as the day of racing goes on. So here we have our pro class, Aaron Johnson. He currently leads that with 80 points. Just as Jeremy said, he's unfortunately not here today at COTA, so missing out on a couple of points there. Blake McGovern is in second, and Lonnie Unser, who we got to follow around track last week at Watkins Glen, is currently sitting in 3rd position with a great charge to try and pull closer to Blake McGovern. And there you can see the rest of the drivers for the Pro Championship standing. She's also not here, though, for today's racing. I'm going to also take you through the next div, and then Jeremy will take you through our last 2 divs. We've also got our team championship. There we have Ted Burns. He's currently leading with a 74-point gap, the engineer from Kellymoss. And Carl Lemkel sits just behind him, the number 95, with 56 points to his name. Chris Bowman currently sitting 3rd position with 48 points. And we know he's been fighting as well with loads of other drivers on track in the past 3 rounds. And there you can see the rest of the drivers as well through the rest of this grid. Jacob Harden, Nathan Warder, Cameron Cool, Donnie Leonard's there, Luigi Polgis, Tom Dyer, and Mark Miller. Unfortunately, those 3 drivers at the bottom, still no points being scored as of yet.
Work our way over to the club member, and it's been all Joseph Holman all the time. He's leading 77 over Max Fleerman, Anthony Castillo with 58 points. If you have to see Jen Hansen, Scott Stanwas, let's see, Chris Matt Miller, and Alex Vasquez the third. And yeah, our three protagonists in the club member championship, they are on track right now. And of course, that leads us to the VIP class. It's Ryan Marine leading over Peter Mackay, though I don't know how long that's going to last because Marine had not here yet. He need to text him and rile him up. He might be still recovering from that 24 hours of Daytona. Speedy Dan Clark, though, is in the field, so expect him to possibly leapfrog Mackay and Marine here. Andy Lee, Luke Hartog, and Sheena Monk, those three also entered in the race, but have not shown yet. And as you mentioned, Tristan, after the checkered flag flies here this weekend, it will mark the halfway part of the season. It's amazing how fast these past couple of weeks have flown, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but we do have a little bit of a wrinkle here in this championship. We have a new, I would say a new segment we like to call the Prediction Smack. And it's a fun, lighthearted space for drivers and commentators to engage in friendly banter. I've been too busy to engage in friendly banter. But I might just do that. I'll be I'll be on the sidelines next week, so you'll have my good friend Charles Bochelle alongside you, which that's a lot of fun, as you know. So we also may award a point or points at the end of a session to an individual who most elevated the fun factor through creativity, engagement, and good spirit. So we'll see how that works out in the end, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. It brings a little bit more of a jovial attitude into this race.
Yeah, absolutely so. And I mean, in terms of those predictions, there hasn't been too many that have been fired off just as of yet. We've got about 3 or 4 that have come from some drivers. Peter McKay predicting that he's going to be all the way at the back of today's racing. So we'll have to see how that turns out for him. And a couple of the other drivers predicting that COTA is going to be one of the most clustered races on the calendar in this 8-race calendar. So we'll have to see how that turns out. We're currently sitting at about an 11 or 12 car turnaround, which is what we're pretty used to here at Kellymoss. I'm pretty sure it's what we saw in round number 1 and round number 2. I know last week at Watkins Glen we had slightly fewer numbers, but boy oh boy did we still make it work with the great racing that we get here at the Kellymoss Club iRacing Championship. But qualifying is officially deeply into it now. 7 minutes of qualifying has gone by, and remember the drivers do have an infinite amount of laps they're allowed to complete in that 20-minute interval. So Blake McGovern currently sits it up at the top, 2 minutes and 6.95.
That's just going to be lap time for these GT3 cars going around. The 992s running at about 206, 207 as you see Donnie Leonard coming off of turn number 1. And I've got to say, I always knew that the uphill run to turn 1 was steep. I never realized how steep it was until I stepped foot in the race control, not the race control room, I apologize, the production room at the Circuit of the Americas. Looked to my left, and it went, it's really steep. So, in real life, it makes a lot of difference. We'll see how it does here at the start with drivers making their way around. Of course, this is such a long straightaway going into turn 12 as well. And then you've got the stadium section, which we are watching Joseph Holman work his way through. McGovern still your fastest overall and in the pros. Carl Lemkool, your fastest for the team. Anthony Castillo, your fastest for the club. So 1, 2, 3, you see there on your screen. They're your fastest. But oddly enough, Mackay and Clark have not set a time for the VIP class. Mackay actually does prove me wrong. Go figure, a fellow commentator would do that. 2:08.166.
Yeah, and those times will only start to increase, or actually decrease, is the correct term, as they'll slowly start to get faster. That track is going to, it's going to evolve slightly in the next 12 minutes or so. Holman gets the fastest lap now, 206.85, so just about a tenth faster than Blake McGovern. And so he's going to be pushing to try and keep himself up there in first for the club member division, and we'll have to see how that turns out for him. But I've got to say, 100% agree with you there in terms of track gradient and steepness. It's something that I feel like camera work, especially in simulators, does tend to get a little bit confusing sometimes. It happens as well if you know tracks such as Kailami, the mine shaft coming down the hill towards Crocodile. It looks pretty shallow in a simulator, but I mean, if you're there in real life, it's a relatively steep downhill. So I mean, you could see it from COTA, yeah, from that camera angle Jim is providing us. It's practically a ramp for the cars to elevate up to turn number one. And I mean, from here, it's not the steepest looking thing, but like you mentioned, you've seen it up there in real life, and that's a pretty steep hill for these Porsches to climb up.
And of course, the downhill is just as steep. I think it's one of the defining features of this circuit. And then you've got the S's, which I jokingly call the autocross section when it first came out years and years ago. So you work your way through the S's. That's usually turn 3 all the way over to turn 9. Your tighter turn there in turn 9, which sets you up for the hairpin of turn number 11. So much zigging and zagging through this section as we're on board with Cameron Cool, watching him get a lap around. And it looks like the 67 Harder wants to get around to try and get a clean lap. And it is so tough around here to get a clean lap in this first half of the section. Then the second half of the track, Tristan, that's where you could really make up a lot of time.
Yeah, you get to stretch your wings out on that back straight. And currently, Holman, you can see him on the bottom side of your screen. He is about to set yet another fastest lap as he's about to come across the line. It's going to definitely be an improvement. Actually, has he messed up somewhere during the final sector? No, he hasn't. There it is, a 206.451. So he's definitely finding the pace out there. 4.5 tenths faster than Blake McGovern in second position. But before we head further into this qualifying session, I believe we've got a track map, and Jeremy can take you away for it in the next couple of seconds.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at this 3.5 mile circuit of the Americas. And it's such an interesting layout because if you've ever been to the Texas Hill Country, you know the varying hills and degrees it is there. Of course, it is just on the edge of the Texas Hill Country, not too far away from Austin Bergstrom Airport. You start here on the start-finish line, and automatically it's an uphill climb through into turn one of the tighter corners that you will see here. You see how it goes wide and then narrow. Then you set yourself up immediately for turn 2, and that's where the S's begin. You got to make sure not to shortcut the car too much because iRacing really does watch that. You get the 3, 4, 5 complex, and then you've got the turn 6, which is it's a sweeper to say the least. To set yourself up for the second half of the S's through turn 6. So there's 6. Set yourself up through turn number 7. You got the 8-9 complex. This is a kind of a challenging turn here. It's more deceitful than you really think it is, and you got to go just a little bit slower. You set yourself up for 8 and 9. If you mess up here, you're going to mess up your run into turn number 11. Turn 10, it is more of a kink, setting up for turn number 11. Then you're hard on the brakes, and you're setting up for the tightest corner in the circuit here. It's turn 11. Of course, it's flat. It's a hairpin, which leads you on to the long back straightaway. And to one of the hardest braking zones you will see here at COTA, and that's turn number 12. Don't want to mess up here because you got a long runoff to set yourself up. Then you get ready to go into the stadium section of the program. 13 and 14 double apex, so you can almost take it as one corner, and then you set yourself up into turn number 15 through 16. 15 you can almost throw away. 16 you just go nice and tight, and then into what, if you remember the Turkish Grand Prix, Istanbul, well, this is exactly what turns 17 and 18 are modeled after. You go around the little tower there, set yourself up for turn number 19. It is a quick left-handed kink, and then you have two choices. You can either go left into pit road or hard on the brakes for turn 20 to set yourself up for the final straightaway and down onto the front part of the circuit, and that is a lap around the circuit of the Americas. Of course, something different that the game doesn't have. You've got an amusement park also there, right behind the stadium section.
Yeah, so that's a great little feature. You know, once you've won the race here at Kellymoss, you can head to the amusement park, have a great day afterwards. But I've got to say, it's a great breather over here to be at Circuit of the Americas. You can see it as well just from the aerial views that we're dealing with a pretty unique track status here compared to what we've raced before, especially in terms of turn numbers. We're usually idle around the 11 to 14 turns in a track. We're currently sitting at 20 turns here at Circuit of the Americas. So definitely out of the ordinary, and it's going to prove to show us some brilliant racing here today in the Porsche 992s. And with about 6 minutes of qualifying left or so, Holman has yet again improved on his time, 2:06.2. And McGovern just not able to catch up just as of yet, 5:39 on that 2:06. Lemko a little bit further with a 2:07.1. Castillo's gotten up there, second position in the club members division. He's up with a 2:07.3, and Fleerman is following on just behind, 2:07.5. Peter McKay is struggling out there a little bit, Jeremy. He's currently 2:08.1, unable to breach into that 2:07 sub. And hopefully, with the next 6 minutes or so, he can try find some traction around the track.
Well, we got to cut him some slack. He was part of the IMSA radio team that was on the air for that 6.5-hour yellow flag that was in the middle of the race. And Bo, if you're watching, I don't think you are, because you wouldn't watch something like this. Come on, man. I know we could have red flagged instead of letting the marshals and the drivers and the crews suffer throughout that 6.5 hour. But you know what? That's just that time of year in Daytona. But huge props to Peter McKay and the crew for slogging through that 6.5 hour. We'll call it a podcast during that full course yellow, because it is absolutely tough to fill a long yellow flag. We're watching the 4:19 of Max Fleerman. Fleerman's fastest lap with a 7:5:02. He's tracked faster in one sector, but not able to track any faster. Did not improve upon his time, so he will take that 7:5:02 fastest. The one driver we haven't seen make a time yet is Speedy Dan Clark. And what worries me about that, Tristan, is the fact that he knows he's got a little bit of a fast car, and he's going to start either A, from pit road, or B, tail end Charlie.
Yeah, I think he's running a bit more of an interesting race here today. He's possibly throwing a bit of a sandbag in during qualifying. And as you mentioned, he's either going to go out last minute in this qualifying session, or he's just not going to qualify at all and either start from the back of the grid or start from pit row and maybe try and have a bit of a challenge here at Circuit of the Americas. So we'll have to wait and see. If you do recall the races that he has been here, he's dominated that VIP class over Ryan Marine and the likes of Peter McKay. He is genuinely Speedy Boy Dan Clark, and that's proven by his track status around here in the Porsche 992. So we'll have to see what he can do here tonight. Obviously, he's only got one competitor in division here, with McKay being present. Unfortunately, Marine not present this time around. So there's only going to be two competing for that top spot in the VIP. Same with the likes of the Club Member Championship. There is only 3 drivers here today from that Club Member Championship, and the rest all part of that Team Championship. Blake McGovern, the only driver here today for that Pro division. So it's looking like it's going to be a bit of a solo ride for him in this next race.
I'm going to make a little bit of a smack talk prediction here. All the fun people are going to be here next week, because I'm not going to be here, and that's quite disappointing. I'll be on the boat watching on my phone. Most likely, we'll probably be at dinner or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, I'm one of those weirdos. Even the races I don't announce, I'll watch. But it's going to be a lot of fun either way. We're on board with Blake McGovern in that. Okay, was it Glello that Mathai was saying that their car was this past weekend at Daytona?
I unfortunately have zero clue about that. I wasn't able to recap too much on the Daytona 24. So I mean, you know a lot more about that than I would.
Okay. Prop in the chat. Let me know if I'm right. I think it was Glello that they called it, but that's about the closest that I think that paint scheme looks like. Either way. So we'll see what McGovern has. He's only 0.3 of a second off of Joseph Holman's fastest time. Still plenty of time to get at least one lap in down the back straightaway.
Yeah, let's see what they can do in this final sector. The track will be at its maximum evolved state right now, nicely rubbered in. And so we'll have to see what the drivers can do with the remaining time. As we did mention at the beginning, is that they are currently running a infinite amount of qualifying laps. And so, very, very deep dive there for the likes of Blake McGovern. And unfortunately for him, it's been all 3 yellow sectors so far on what looks to be his final lap, unless he's got enough in the tank to go again. We'll have to see if that happens, because currently it's all yellow for him in his first couple of sectors. Same for the likes of Joseph Holman. I see Nathan Warder is green through sector 2, so possibly a slight improvement there. We'll have to see if it turns out for him. But for the rest of the drivers, I think we might be pretty stuck on positions where it stands.
Well, Lemcool, as you mentioned, 2 purple sectors, but 1 yellow. Let's see what he can do as he works his way around into the stadium section. He might just get in under by the skin of his teeth as he gets around Donnie Leonard. So Leonard lets him by. Here comes Lemcool around the tower. And this is going to be a flying lap out of him again. Everybody chasing Holman's 6.394. Actually, the 6.204, I should say, as I need to look at my right column, as Leonard going to go right into the pits. Lemcool going to come around that final number, turn 20, and that's going to be it. He does not get in time, so it's going to be Holman and McGovern on that front row. But, yeah, the 10 cars taking times. We're taking 11 to the features. We get ready for the warm-up session. And I'm going to make a bold prediction. Yeah, it's going to be another bold prediction. Yeah, Jim's like, oh, again. It's going to be, I think Dan Clark's going to come from the back and actually win this thing overall. He really doesn't have too much of competition because, as we said, John Song has not checked in, and I don't see any additional drivers after qualifying. So let's see what happens here in this feature race.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna throw something similar in there, but it's gonna be for Carl Lemcol. We were just watching that lap, and that is such an unfortunate moment there when you've gone purple in 2 sectors, and then the session cuts you off when you are basically 150 meters away from checkered flag, and that could have been a great lap from him. We obviously wouldn't have known the exact time, but with 2 purple sectors on improvement on his existing time, he was already sitting in third. Obviously, that's third overall. He was already first in the team championships there, as I don't see Ted Burns here today either. So, I mean, he's sitting first in charge there, but I have a feeling Carl Lemkel is going to be challenging the likes of Blake McGovern and Holman for that overall podium here today. I feel like he's got the pace in him, and so we'll have to keep our eyes peeled for that. We currently held out on track with Joseph Holman. He's still it looks like he's the one of the only cars who's come out to do a bit of a warm-up. We are currently in our warm-up phase, which is the 3-minute slot. We usually do our track map here. We did it slightly earlier for all of you guys, just to cover the COTA Circuit of the Americas before the chaos unfolds of this feature race.
Yeah, and I've got Jim said the Crazy Chickens is going to be his prediction. So as we see the Crazy Chicken on the rear quarter panels of Holman's number 94. And one thing that I was going to say that I forgot to mention during qualifying, I was never a fan of I just blanked on the track designer here. I was never a fan of his until he came out with COTA, and then I felt like he really improved upon his track designs after that. It wasn't so parking lot-ish. Once COTA came around, I think that that's when the light clicked, and now we're starting to see some great tracks, some great grade 1s, grade 2 tracks out of the track designer here at COTA.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from what I can see, track designer Herman Tilke. I don't know if that rings a bell for you.
That is.
Herman
Yes, that's Herman
Tilke.
Tilke.
Yeah, he's gotta have some strange thoughts to develop a track so complex as this. I've got to say, COTA, especially if you're a Formula One fan, I think it's one of the most unique circuits that Formula One races at, and obviously we get the blessing of multiple other different classes and types of cars racing around you. It's great to see the Porsche 992s here as well. But I've got to say, it is one of those tracks that can really throw you off if you haven't practiced it enough, especially through that SS section. It's not an ordinary SS section like Suzuka, where it's, holding on the left curb, then flick to the right curb, brake and hold on to the left curb. It's very much so you're trying to maintain that maximum speed. And if you don't know how to take those S's, well, you're going to lose a lot of time through that first sector. But we are officially lining up here for the feature race for round number 4.
Indeed, we are. We'll bring up the grid here for this 40-minute feature race. It's Joseph Holman, your pole sitter overall and in the club championship with Blake McGovern, your lone and one and only pro driver. Alongside row 2 is Carl Lemkool, your team pole sitter, and Anthony Castillo sits fourth. Row 3 is Max Fleerman, Tristan, and Jacob Harder.
Yeah, Peter McKay will take 7th. He's currently leading that VIP division. Donnie Leonard a little bit further behind in 8th, and Nathan Water will be taking 9th position. Cameron Cool a little bit further behind, 7.6 seconds difference. He looked like he was struggling a little bit out there. We did see him trying to traffic manage a bit, and don't think he was too successful in today's running. And then Dan Clark, as we mentioned, starting in 11th. He has taken to the grid here, so there's not going to be any pit lane starting for him, but I tend to agree with your prediction here, Jeremy. I think we're going to see a bit of a dangerous figure there towards the backside for the number 50 as our pace car gets underway. It's Porsche leading Porsche as we head down to turn number 1 for the start of this round.
Yeah, I've been lucky to see what Dan Clark can do here in a Porsche. Not here, COTA, but just in a Porsche in general. To say the least, too, it's kind of a shame that we didn't see Ashley Freiberg or Lonnie Unser. I know Lonnie's dealing with some sponsor get-ups, and that's important. But Lonnie Unser is a podium finisher here at COTA. Ashley Freiberg, a 992 race winner here, actually won her first Porsche Sprint Challenge GT3 993 Pro win at this circuit. Was lucky enough to call that here at the Circuit of the Americas. But either way, we are just about set to get going. 11 cars starting. But hey, you know what? We saw last week that it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality of this race. Whiskey Fowl reminded me, Tilka Tracks. Yeah, indeed. Burger Mom saying ready for a whopper of a race. So yes, the burger puns out of the Warda family still running nice and greasy, as I like to say. The lights are out on the Porsche pace car, working his way around the final corners. You see they're crossing that pit commit line across the heading into turn number 19. A close up of the number 94 of Joseph Holman is right there. We'll see the hard left into pit road by the pace car. We'll turn to the safety car if we decide to go full course yellows. Of course, there are no yellows here, but either way, pace car pits. It's Holman and McGovern, 94 and 24 on the front row for this fourth round of the championship here at the Circuit of the Americas. The 11-car field bunches up. Holman inches further and further. We are green as McGovern's going to fall back just a little bit. Going to bring Carl Lemkool up to the fray. It's going to start to go side by side, almost 3 wide heading into turn number 1. And Lemkool going to dive into second place. So far, everybody makes their way forward through 1.
Yeah, great little stint there through turn number 1, and a big thing to mention as well with turn number 1, especially with those huge grid sizes, is that the start of turn number 1 extremely wide, and like you mentioned, it then converts into a very, very narrow downhill. But all the Porsches over here, very easy to manage down into that first turn rotation, and it looks like we've had a relatively clean turn 1 to this race. I'm not going to call the clean lap just as of yet. We'll wait for them to get all the way to the third sector. But for the time being, Dan Clark is already fighting at the back. Cameron Cool has been shoved off over there, and Dan Clark claimed his first name. Lemkool's also moved up into second, so both of our predictions have already clicked up 1 spot. That's great to see as we see the rest of the cars now joining onto that back straight to Circuit of the Americas, and this is where the Porsches would normally struggle against other classes, but they are the only car currently out today, so there's no form of struggle. Here we can see it's Leonard versus the likes of McKay on that back straight. The slipstream is going to be hard here for Donnie Leonard. Is he going to find somewhere to get around that Martini Porsche? No, he's not. It's a long dive for McKay, and it's a little bit of a tight dive. I'm not going to lie to you, almost into the back of Fleerman, but he's managed to hold it and will keep 6th position.
That was an absolute great dive with Fleerman able to hold off Mackay Clark up 1 more spot, by the way, up to 9th place. You see, he got around Warda, probably wasn't too hungry for burgers, but able to get his way all the way around. Mackay still holding off Leonard for that 6th spot overall. Of course, Mackay, your VIP leader as they run for the time being, but Holman, Lemkool, McGovern, 1, 2, 3 as they work their way around turn number 20 for the first time time at speed. And it's going to be about a 20-lap affair with the way that they're running the lap times across the line. It will be Joseph Holman. Now, here's what's interesting about COTA. That's the start line. Back there, they've got to race that to the finish. So we're running the FIA configuration.
Yeah, so start line slightly further. If you're used to the F1 configuration, the start line is basically as soon as you exit the corner, and that would have really come into favor for Lemcool in qualifying. Unfortunately for him, different start line a little bit further on, and that's where he just missed out and had to sit in third. But he's already made headway, moved up into second. Never mind, I lied. He's been overtaken and he's lost it. Oh, Lemcool has lost it into the wall through the S's, and I was just talking about the difficulties of the S's section, and I think he's lost the rear going through the S's. Here's your replay of Lemcool. Man, that is, I don't know what to call that commentator's curse or not. I really hope it's not. But here's Lemcool up into turn number one. You can see McGovern did give a little bit of a dive there. I'm not too sure if that gave some intimidation from the rear. He's a little bit over the curbs, but coming into the S's now. Where did this error appear? Was it braking on the curbs? Was it slightly too much of a turning angle? I'm assuming it's going to be that fat sausage curb. And yep, there it is. It's one of the big sausage curbs. And that's a way to destroy the front side of a Porsche.
Yeah, that'll get you every single time as one less front runner is there. And because of that, you see the string out of competitors as Mackay tries to close in on Fleerman while trying to hold off Leonard. And that's always tough to do. And of course, also, you've got the shark of Dan Clark. Speedy Dan trying to go up several spots. If he times it right, he might be able to get 3 spots in one lap. You're on board with the Brit. As Harder with a little bit of an issue. He spins off. Clark goes up into 7th place. So that's one more spot he doesn't have to worry about. Now sets himself up for Donnie Leonard. Be interesting to see if we can get a replay on that spin by Harder as Warda goes up 1 spot as well. Here's that replay we mentioned. And this is, here's the thing. These corners, they look like they're easy, but a lot of the time they catch you out, especially with a back heavy race car. And that back end wanting to see what the front end was looking at, heavy into the, I'd say light into the Tech Pro barriers.
Yeah, and another thing to consider as well, just with traction, what we've seen already with Lemcool and COTA is that we're not dealing with standard track temperatures here. We're almost at a 30-degree track temp, and that's going to play pretty hot into the car. But there we go. We officially have Dan Clark on the backside for the first position slot of his division. Peter McKay is next in line to be overtaken by the red Porsche. It all comes down to how fast he can catch up. Obviously, Leonard is going to sit in the red Porsche slipstream for the next couple of laps and hope to be dragged along. Maybe he can even attack Peter McKay if he can follow along nice enough. You can see he's trying to copy the lines and just break that air a bit so that he doesn't have to fall back on pace, especially on that back straight. If he can maintain the gap between himself and Dan Clark, he is going to get a slightly better top speed on that back straight. As we see Dan Clark, the number 50, slowly starting to wrap the likes of Peter McKay. And it is now down to under a second gap between the two. And this is going to start to get very interesting once Dan Clark gets up into that top 5.
Yeah, because you've got Fleerman and Castillo up there as well, but McGovern has finally closed in on Holman for that overall lead. Again, this is an out-of-class battle between the club member who's your leader, Holman, and Blake McGovern, who sits in 2nd place. I'm interested to see if Clark can keep up to his student there. That's what's going to make life a little bit more interesting when I'm not saying if, but when Clark gets up to that battle for the lead. McGovern, though, is closed within striking distance. Let's see if he can do something here heading into turn number 1. And, of course, this is also great practice for the drivers, too, because they've got to set something up early if they want to make that run to the finish. We're working lap number 3, going to cross the line and work lap number 4 so far in this race. McGovern closes in on Holman coming off that final turn and crosses the line. Holman so far leading from the get-go as they work their way up the straightaway, and McGovern too far away to make anything happen. And really, that's one of the 2 battles we have here. McGovern tries to go deep to the inside, not going to make it happen. Discretion the better part of valor, because I've seen lots of Porsches end up backwards from contact from somebody diving just a little too deep.
Yeah, it's a lot of speed compression coming into turn number 1. It's quite a heavy braking zone, so you very quickly come from about 180, 190 k's an hour, almost into a 60 to 50 kilometer braking zone. And so, there's a little bit more of a curb tap but Dan Clark manages it this time. Instead of what we saw in practice, Peter McKay touched the exact same curb. There's the replay. Absolute bounce on the left-hand side. The suspension got some airtime, and Peter McKay hit the exact same curb during practice. Unfortunately, he was not able to hold it, but Dan Clark showing that skill. The number 50 red Porsche is catching now, and it's going to continue to catch in the next couple of laps. I got to give a round of applause, though, to Carl Lemkel. He is officially back out on track. It's great to see when drivers don't throw in the white towel when something of that scale happens, especially when you lose the entire front end of the car. And so Lemkel, he will be about a minute or so behind the rest of the grid, but he still gets to race and try and participate for some points here in this round number 4 at Circuit of the Americas. But onto the back straight, you can see Peter McKay getting very close on the backside of Fleerman and almost looks like he was going for yet another dive. He is scrambling so much to keep the distance from Dan Clark behind, but it is closing lap by lap. It was a second. It's now down to 5/10. And I've got to say, Jeremy, I'm predicting next 2 or 3 laps, we might have a bit of a battle on our hands here between McKay and Clark.
I don't disagree, but I'm not surprised that Speedy Dan was able to keep it through the S's, because you got to think of some of the badass race cars that he has run over his career. He ran the 06 Champ Car, the 07 Champ Car, and he's run a handful of prototypes in ALMS, IMSA. So again, the man knows how to race a race car. And of course, we mentioned last time we talked is that, he's going around and installing sims. So he's very familiar with what these sims can do. Clark right under the rear wing of Mackay. Let's see if he makes pop out here in turn 1. And indeed, he's going to. And it's going to be a matter of who gets on the brakes last. And right now it is Mackay. Look at him. Hold off. And that's a spin. Dan Clark spins out Mackay. Of course, it could have been a factor of Mackay closing the door a little bit too much while Clark had that foot promptly right in there. But still, that's a top 5. And I guess you were right then, but it was less than a lap. It was maybe 2 or 3 corners. Let's take a look at this replay.
Yeah. Seems like he took it slightly earlier. So looking from it, let's see if we can get a bit of an aerial view just to see if it was a bit of a compression from Peter Mackay, or if it was a bit of a inside line taking there from Dan Clark. We'll get a bit of a better angle here for you just to see. And so this is from a bit of an aerial view. Here's Dan Clark. He's up on the inside line now. Was it a turn in? So let's see. He's got the inside line coming towards that curb, and a little bit of an outsweeping there for Dan Clark. I think he carried just a bit too much speed into that corner. He wasn't able to get the rotation. Remember, turn number 1 at COTA is practically a good 60 to 65 degree hairpin, and you've got to get that car slowed down in order to make the rotation correct. So I don't know what your thoughts on that are, Jeremy. I think Dan Clark just a little bit too late on the brakes there to make that position happen.
Yeah, but we see those moves all the time there, and it always ends up the same way. I would just call that a racing incident. Honestly, Dan Clark, deep to the inside, Mackay just coming in with a tighter line, as your only race we have right now is Holman and McGovern. Here's something else to watch out for with Clark. Last time by, he was a half second faster than Fleerman, but Clark was still in traffic, so that's something to think about as well. Also, the cloud cover is coming in to COTA as your battle for the lead kind of taking the accordion effect here.
Yeah, definitely. So we're looking at a 0% chance of rain here. So unfortunately, it looks like we're just going to get a darkened portion of the circuit. I'm not going to lie. I think rain would have played quite an interesting factor, like we saw at Watkins Glen, with the drivers choosing different strategies in terms of wet and dry. But as it goes for precipitation, it looks like the weather's going to hold up. The rain's going to stay in the sky where it normally should be, and the drivers are going to continue to push around on their dry compound tires. Yeah, we're on board Blake McGovern. He's been in the same the same distance from Holman now for the past couple of laps, and I don't think he's been able to gain on the backside of Holman. It just looks like Holman is absolutely stuck to the track here. But one thing to mention, though, is our virtual grandstand is showing so much support for Holman up in front. It's all about the chicken on the side. It's all about being jovial here tonight. And he's up in front, and it looks like he's sticking it out here for the next couple of minutes.
Look at the gap that Clark has on Fleerman now, as that is closed up in the past couple of laps, and it's still that half second. That's where Clark is eating everything up. Now, if he keeps that half second gap, he may not be able to get to the lead. So my prediction, once again, this is why I do traffic. I don't do weather, because I would just be wrong half the time and have everybody come outside my station with pitchforks and torches telling me why I'm wrong. But either way, Clark trying to make that climb up through the top of the race, as he now leads the VIP over 6 seconds by Peter Mackay. Clark trying to get to Fleerman, and this is now overall places that Dan Clark needs, not places in class, as it's only 2 competitors, as we mentioned, but Clark closing in. And see, that's what I love about some of these races, Tristan. When I talk about quality over quantity, yeah, you think, okay, well, they're also spread apart, Jeremy. Why do you like these races? Because you could tell when some of these drivers are closing in. You can see when one driver is better than another driver in a certain section, and just watch that gap close. That's what I love about road racing the most.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see when a battle is about to become apparent, as one driver slowly starts to creep up to the other. The only unfortunate part about it here at the Kellymoss KLÜB iRacing Championship is that most of these drivers in these cases are not actually racing in the same division. So, for example, we've got Dan Clark. He's chasing onto the backside of Fleerman, and he is decreasing that gap rapidly. But unfortunately, it's not actually for position. Dan Clark is technically got nothing else to do here for tonight. He's in first for his division, and if he does come first for the overall, it's not actually going to affect his points whatsoever. So I think it's just going to be a boasting game for him. He is indeed looking like he's going to be ready to make a dive at the end of the straight, or maybe even before the start of the straight. He's looking up the inside line, trying to look for opportunities. But as they come around that corner onto the back straight, is it going to be something for him to attack at the bottom? He is going to have the slightly better straight line speed. He's got a bit of an air breakage here with the slipstream. Fleerman's just up in front. You can see he is starting to close in. The question is, when does he tuck out? When does he break slightly later? Here he comes. We'll get the outside view as they dive into turn number 1. And Fleerman goes defensive to keep Dan Clark behind, but it is going to sacrifice his exit speed. And here comes Dan Clark on the outside line now. Fleerman jumps up on the inside and tries to go defensive again. But the more he goes defensive, the more he ruins his exit speed. And Dan Clark has read him like an absolute book and made the jump before we even get to the third sector starting point.
I'll tell you what, that is absolutely fantastic out of Clark. Now he sets his sights on Castillo, who's 2 seconds ahead, and even that's falling, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely so. And I think that 1.8 second gap between Clark and Castillo, and Clark actually makes an error on the exit of that final corner, and Fleerman's back ahead. So the battle between Castillo and Clark that we thought was going to happen has unfortunately been delayed. We've got the fight begin against Fleerman and Clark yet again. Is he going to dive? So here's a bit of a replay. I think we've passed the replay already, as it was just on the exit. We're going to get it for you in a moment. So here's the exit. Coming out of turn number 1, was it just a possible, little bit of a nudging there on the backside of that Porsche? He is able to hold it with all of his experience, but not enough to keep the driver behind at bay.
Yeah, no surprise here, is Clark still closing in on Fleerman, trying different lines, getting inside those mirrors. That's what you need to do, to say the least. But that gap now has been opened up by a full second over Castillo. So Clark, in spite of him having that position, when he lost it, he lost a whole lot of ground to that battle for the overall podium, working around that turn 11 hairpin once again down the straightaway. This is where Clark can get the money passed out, as he drafts right up under the rear wing of Fleerman, and I think he's going to pop out any second, and indeed he does. Goes to the inside. They're side by side heading into turn number 12. Deeper on the brakes. Clark goes, and he's going to get that position. No chance at an over-under. Fleerman's going to try, though, but he's got to do it the long way, high, wide, and handsome, as Clark has that line, and that is exactly how you make that pass.
Yeah, that was a great jump up there from Clark, and something to look at as well, just based on what Clark is planning to do in the next coming laps. Looking at that lap time graph on the bottom right-hand side, just the amount of time that we see him gaining on, you can see that, I mean, lap 5, well over a second gain on the likes of Fleerman during their battle that they just had. Obviously, he's moved up into 4th now, and now he can comfortably go and chase onto the backside of Castillo. He's got about still 23 or so minutes left of racing. I think it's going to be enough time for him to get up onto that podium spot, as Castillo is about 2.8 seconds away now from Dan Clark. Unfortunately, from there on, it's a bit of a difficult chase down towards McGovern, as that is a 10.4 second gap to catch up to the top 2. But once he does reduce that 10-second gap, he's actually caught up to Holman and McGovern, as they are practically 2 and 2 right now through the track. They have not been able to split up just as of yet. You can see Holman, it's the blue versus the green currently. The two contrasted colors. You never put these two colors next to each other in real life unless you want to irritate a designer of sort, because blue and green, very much the opposites. And we're seeing that out on track as well. The number 94 versus the likes of Blake McGovern, the number 24. Who is going to be the best as it comes towards the end of this race?
Well, something that Blake and Dan both have to worry about are tires. And they're going to fall off at some point, to say the least. Holman has not had to struggle too much, as he has led every single lap that this race has been run. As we're working lap number 9, we'll get the halfway sign, not this time, but next time by. Either way, these tires are going to go away, and when they go away, they're going to go away quick, in spite of the different model that we've seen here on iRacing for these Porsches. But as we've mentioned before, the one thing that everybody says about these 992s is that is the closest that you can get to driving 992 in real life.
Yeah, absolutely so. And I mean, I think it's also just a great representation that the sims have got, especially if you're in the iRacing sim. I think most would argue that they've got the best handling models out there for the cars that they race, especially the 992, which has been developed and engineered with so much ingenuity and detail. I believe that they worked hand in hand with most of their cars that they have to offer, with the physical teams and manufacturers of the cars in real life, to produce something that is 100% true to real life. And so I believe, obviously we'll get the insight from some of our pro drivers here. For example, Blake McGovern does indeed drive these around in real life. Not 100% sure if the 992 he's driven before, but definitely some of the others, the Carreras, the other Porsche races. And obviously he's doing that with Kellymoss. So now he's jumping into the 992 for all the action here at the Kellymoss Club Championship. And he's doing a great job so far. He's going to rack up a lot of good points here in today's racing. As we did mention, Johnson is not here today, so that gives Blake McGovern a bit of a catch-up session. He's got the whole of COTA to himself, basically. I mean, even if he makes an error, to think about it, Jeremy, he can go down to 11th position and still technically finishes first.
Remember, drop points as well are coming into play. So I can't say I blame Aaron for not racing when you have these drop points available to you. But McGovern goes just a little bit wide coming off of turn number 11. And that 3-second gap is now down to 2.3 seconds from Clark to Castillo for that third place. So we'll see what happens here in the next couple of laps if Clark can catch up to Castillo, because once he does that, he's got a monumental hill to climb when it comes to that battle, to get up to that battle for the lead that we have seen all race long. And Dan Clark now can set fast lap after fast lap. By the way, if you're keeping score at home, the fastest lap of the race is Joseph Holman with a 2:06.298. That is the fastest lap so far tonight. Next closest is Blake McGovern at a 6:06.01. And then you've got to go down to Dan Clark. Just set a 7.279. So while we're worried about tires, I don't think we've seen the best out of Clark as of yet.
No, I think he's playing a bit of a reserve card over here, and you can see it's reflecting as well in terms of lap time compared to Castillo. I have a feeling that 2.5 can dissipate very quickly. We saw it with Fleerman, where he was literally chunking out 7/10 a lap, basically. And I feel like he's going a bit more of a conservative approach now. We did mention, Jeremy did bring up a very good point. And at the halfway point of this race now, tires are going to be absolutely crucial. And remember that Clark did have quite a bit of a fighting moment there with Fleerman through those previous couple of sectors. And that would have cooked the tires up a little bit, increased their temps, and started scrubbing them towards the mid side of this race. So he's possibly just going slightly more conservative now as we head to halfway point of this race. He does want to get the car home alive and not lose it through the S's due to some form of tire wear and not being able to feel your car properly. So for the likes of Dan Clark, remember, we did mention he doesn't really have to fight that much anymore. He is first in class, and now it's just up to Bose points and Brownie points here for him to get further up into that podium spot.
This battle between Leonard and Fleerman really looking pretty good, as Fleerman trying to close in on Leonard once again for position, as the two are neck and neck heading towards the hairpin at turn number 11. You know, one thing that I think about when I think about the hairpin, do you remember the viral moment from a couple of years ago when the now NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series was racing at COTA, and somehow Marco Andretti's entire rear end assembly just noped out of the back of the truck?
I unfortunately don't remember that. I haven't watched that before. I believe Jim has. He's giving some nice remarks here in the production booth. But I mean, go ahead and expand on that story. I get a bit of a lesson in it either way.
So I'll send you the video if I could find it. I'll try and do that during this race. But so basically, Marco Andretti coming into a braking zone, the rear end assembly just went. Sorry, can't really do a pop tonight. I don't know why, but yeah, just pop, and just you saw the back end jump, and there goes his rear wheels ahead of him. So it was very, look, out of all the Marco Andretti things that has happened to him, that was probably the most Marco Andretti-ish.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of an instance that's happened like that. I think the most extreme is like a full suspension failure that we've seen in different classes and stuff in real life racing, where you just see an entire axle of wheels come off. And as you mentioned, that a similar happened for him on the rear side, where the whole backside just popped off. And thankfully, we don't see that with the Porsche 992s. That would be quite drastic. Imagine seeing that, watching the Kellymoss KLÜB iRacing Championship, and just watching an entire drivetrain pop out of one of these Porsches and out on the track, it spills. Thankfully, they sit quite nicely maintained, and with just about 15 or so minutes left of racing, this is where it starts to get a bit action-packed for our drivers. The number 419 of Fleerman, he is trying to chase up towards third position. He is in that club members class, chasing onto Castillo up in third, but he's got quite a bit of a running up ahead. Leonard, 5 second of a gap, and Clark, 2 second of a gap. And Clark is busy pulling that gap down now, quite a bit towards Castillo. Let's hope that before the end of this race, he does catch up to pull onto that podium spot.
Still plenty of time left, plenty of racing. Anything can happen here at the Circuit of the Americas, and I've seen some pretty weird stuff happen. Fleerman now almost within drafting distance of Leonard to make something happen into turn 12, but I've got to say this, that gap has not fallen that much, and now it starts to get into orange, which means the draft is playing more of an effect than it did a couple of meters ago, but nonetheless, Fleerman able to dive on the brakes a little bit harder and still not able to close in on Leonard. So Fleerman still trying his best to get around. He's down 1 from his grid spot, highest climber of the day. No surprise, Speedy Dan Clark up 7 from his starting grid of shotgun on the field. But Fleerman doing all he can in that Jeff Gordon inspired number 419 to get around Donnie Leonard for overall position. As you take a look at Speedy Dan Clark, trying to close in on Castillo, 2 seconds in arrears around turn 20. It's tough because you take a look at the 2 lap times. Clark with the fastest lap of his race so far with a 2:07.041 last time by. I take that back, a 2:06.963, but he may have gotten an off track, so that lap won't count under the time, but he is running about the same, if not a little bit faster than Castillo there in 30. See off the back of the rear wing of the number 50, not too far away, the number 42, Castillo sitting there. That was a little bit of bump. That's going to help Clark close in, and indeed he does. That Porsche gets bigger, and it goes by. Here comes Speedy Dan Clark up to third.
My goodness, I was I was busy watching this video now of the entire backside of that truck pop off, and I've got to say I've never seen that happen before. Quite an event. I appreciate you sharing that with me. And then as I come back from it, I almost see the likes of Castillo completely losing the car over the sausage curb. So he has that replay while we all got a little bit antsy during this the S section. So coming through, and it looks like the same curb that we lost Lemkel to. Indeed, it is. And oh, he managed to just catch that. Unfortunately, we didn't see him go into the wall over there, and but he does unfortunately lose out that gap to Dan Clark. He's now right on the backside. I do see someone in the virtual grandstand asking, did McGovern have a code brown or tires gone? And I've got to say, we wouldn't know exactly because we can't see inside that cockpit, but I do have a feeling it is going to be a slight tire issue. He has been pushing the entire time to try and catch up to Holman. And like Jeremy did mention, we're now about 30 minutes in, 10 minutes to go. And, those tires are definitely going to be quite worn. Was there possibly a bit of a squabble out on track here for Blake McGovern? Did he have a bit of a loosey end and possibly through the next couple of sections? Not seeing it too much from Blake McGovern. Looks like he's still pretty fixated, but he is losing a lot of time to Holman.
Well, I think that was one of those areas where the race stewards do not like you going wide. We're following the FIA rules, not the IndyCar rules. So McGovern took the IndyCar line, and the steward said, no, we don't like that. So that's why he had to take that slowdown penalty, and that's why he's fallen back to 2.6 seconds. As Whiskey File, we need to get a quintet of Joe's cheer squad. I would pay good money to see. Well, you know what? No, actually, I wouldn't. I take that back. No. That's just there's some things that we don't need to see, and unfortunately, now that's seared in my brain. And sleep is going to be impossible for me. All right. That's awesome. Holman with the fastest lap of the race, still 6:298. So he's really dominated this whole race. We're just about 10 minutes left to go in this race. Let's see if Clark can close in. The only two drivers who've had lap times in the 206s have been Holman and McGovern. I think at this point, Tristan, we should probably convince Holman to maybe step up his racing campaign, because so far he's done quite well in the club class.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, I don't know if this is a sign for Kellymoss to maybe look at him and see if there's some opportunities lying around, because we've seen it already in real life how sim racing can transform into real life opportunities. And as we mentioned, Holman, is, even with Johnson being on grid, he's been up there in that podium spot. Obviously, Johnson is a completely different breed, and he does tend to lie quite a bit ahead. But Holman is usually within that area of second to third, and obviously today he gets to lead this race due to Johnson not being here, and he's been completely uncontested. Matter of fact, so he's just going to continue to push around here for the next 10 or so minutes of racing, and let's hope he remains uncontested. He has the second VIP who will now be challenging that flamed up car, Fleerman, as they go through the final sector now towards turn number 20 and onto that main straight. And it is indeed Peter McKay as he slowly starts to creep up and break into that top five. He's currently seventh, with Fleerman holding off in sixth. Leonard's up in fifth, and quite a bit of a gap towards the likes of Leonard. So I don't know if he's going to be able to grab top five here unless something goes on up in front, but for the time being, chasing on the backside of Fleerman.
I've got a thought, because I know Victoria's watching, but TBR Cheddar saying any pit stops or sprint? No, this is a sprint race, and it's 40 minutes. Rung what you brung, as I say in my short track series. You got to take the girl home that you brought to the dance. And this is why, Fleerman with a little bit of a late break, and it kind of misses the apex there in turn 11, and that will mess you up, because when you have somebody behind you who makes the apex, that's going to slow you down through the back straight away. I'm wondering... I'm wondering if this is a replay of McGovern's off track through the S's, and that's a little bit of a miss apex through there, and too much apex, which could cause you to really mess up this section, as if you don't have the right rhythm, you're going to be pretty much hung out to dry. But back to what I was saying about Fleerman, I'm wondering here if Fleerman's tires are just went away, because he had two really great battles with Clark and Leonard, and now Mackay, who basically said, you know what, Dan, you're faster than me, go ahead, I'm going to run my own race. I wonder if Mackay has a little bit of extra rubber that Fleerman does not.
Yeah, I think Fleerman, 100% your prediction is pretty accurate. He's had two great battles here, and actually it looks like he's completely just let McKay dive up on the inside line over there, and he's not going to contest too much, and I think that is just due to the fact that the tires are slightly overheating a bit and starting to wear up out on track. And we did mention it. He was able to defend really well against Leonard and the likes of Clark, but that is going to do a massive work on your tires, especially when we're not in a race where pit stops are required and you've got an opportunity to go put on another set of tires without losing too much time to your competitors. This is a sprint race, as we did already mention with regards to that comment in the virtual grandstand. So there is no tire change unless you want to lose a lot of time out on grid and fall backwards towards the backside of this 11 car pack. But we do have someone in our virtual grandstand asking, is this the 911 GT3R? The Porsche naming convention is slightly mixed up. I believe this is the 991, but it's also the 992, as seen in the iRacing simulation. So I mean, we refer to it as the 992 GT3R, but I believe calling it the 911 is also not incorrect.
Correct. Either way, Mackay able to. Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing. When I was a young announcer, everybody's like, "Oh, you get paid by the word." No, I just get paid when I'm here. So, yeah, you just try and conserve as many words as you can. 15-second gap between Clark and McGovern. So I have a feeling that this is about as high as we're going to see Dan Clark make his way through the field, barring some sort of issue with Holman and McGovern. It's got a handful of laps left, so let's take a look at some of our predictions. Mackay's is being a snail on the back of the grid, that's not come true. Fleerman's saying he predicts COTA will be the most clustered race on the calendar. I don't think so. I think this race has been just as entertaining as we saw last week at Watkins Glen, and Castillo wasn't late to practice. But there is one prediction. We will hold off on that because there's still plenty of racing left. A little bit of a late break out of Fleerman. I thought he was going to go into the runoff there and end up in the kitty litter, but he's able to save it, blow it back up, and continue on. Thankfully, there's not too many drivers behind him. I should say harder. It's about 13 seconds behind him. So still, one mistake, as long as Fleerman can get back on track, he should be okay.
Yeah, and now going through about 6 minutes left of racing. I mean, it's crazy how time flies, Jeremy. We were literally just looking at the start of this race, and we've got practically a 6-minute quick hot lap for all the drivers to go around and do. But a driver also to commend is Lemcol. Remember, he had that incident at the start of the race. He's already moved up to 10th. He has overtaken Cool, and now chasing onto the backside of the Bergerman of Water in 9th. But I don't think he's going to have the time to catch. He is still 25 seconds away, and we do have 5 minutes of racing left, so definitely not going to be catchable. But in terms of that prediction as well, about it being clustered, I think it also works in the way of maybe clustered in terms of actual grid size. Unfortunately, we are still looking at the same grid size we've been rocking the whole season, about 11 to 12 cars. Nothing of sorts. We're looking at 20 to 30 Porsches out on grid, so not clustered in that way in terms of the track being overpopulated, but nonetheless, even with only 11 cars, I've got to say, Jeremy, they have provided the action yet again, and we've seen some great overtakes happen today.
Jim, can we take a look at Nathan Warda's car real quick? Let's give him one shout out each and every race weekend or race that we have here as you see the burger car making his way up the straightaway. And I know that these drivers, they go back and watch these races. So, Nathan, I have a plea for you. I don't care if it's next week. I don't care if it's 2 weeks from now. Find a way to make your burger car look like the Smash Burger at Cops. Now, for those who are wondering what Cops is, it's either Cops or Cops. I can't remember exactly how it's pronounced. That is the local Smash Burger and custard joint in the Milwaukee area. Now, I know that, it's an hour apart from Madison, but I think it'll work. Or just do Culver's. Taste how much we care. You can pay me later, Mr. Culver.
Or he's got if there was some way to make some form of spillage on the backside, you loosen out some mayonnaise or something as you drive. Unfortunately, that wouldn't exactly be real life. Just leaking a bunch of mayonnaise or some nice burger relish. That would be pretty competitive advantage there for Nathan Water. He'd be spilling some oil all over track. He has a bit of a replay that we've got with another one of our drivers. This is Jacob Harter, who's not had the most interesting of races yet today. And there's a little bit of interesting stuff there for you as he heads onto the back straight, just outbrakes himself. And fortunately for him, doesn't lose the car, doesn't hit a gravel trap. There's lots and lots of runoffs here at COTA, very similar to what Paul Ricard has got in terms of that outside cheating of the track and all the American branding. Obviously, at Paul Ricard, it's all French branding, but it's still the blue and red colors, blue, red, and white being utilized. So, somewhat way they are similar in that regard. But we do only have about 3 minutes left of racing yet to go. And for the time being, Joseph Holman still holds out strong, almost a 4-second gap now to Blake McGovern. Dan Clark will remain in third with an 8-position climb to get to where he is right now. But that gap to Blake McGovern, I don't think it's going to be withdrawable in the amount of time that we've got left. So looks like Dan Clark will hold that final podium spot as the race comes to its end.
I mean, either way, it's absolutely fantastic that he made it up that far, to say the least. But that just goes to show the talent that both Holman and McGovern both have. So the student will be beating the teacher unless the student steps a toe out of line. Dan Clark now makes his way into the 6-second bracket. I'm getting a kick out of this. 206.997. Wrong generation of Porsche, but still, nonetheless, it is 997 at the end of Clark's fastest lap so far.
Yeah, so there we are. We have officially the third driver now to break into that 206 sub. So, I mean, I was expecting that from Dan Clark, one of the faster drivers out on grid for the VIP class. And thankfully, before the end of the race, he's been able to break into that 206. So that's for Holman, McGovern, and Clark, the only 3 drivers who have broken the 206 sub. The rest sitting with a 207 to 211 average lap time. Unfortunately, Cameron Cool has not had the best of races yet today. He's currently rocking a 211 as his best lap time, and a 216 as his last. So he's really struggling out there in his Porsche today. But fortunately for him, he's still going to finish the race, which I feel is the most important part. Because what's the point in attending an event if you don't finish the race? It's the same thing with Lemcol, which is why I was glad to see him come out of the pit lane after that massive incident he had and continue pushing around track regardless of the fact that he's all the way towards the backside. Here we have Cameron Cool down in 11th as he lets Dan Clark go past through that being a back marker. But we officially have 1 minute left of racing to go, and it's looking pretty good for Holman.
No, really is he has opened up a 3.7 second gap as, I was wrong in my counting. I can only count to 20 fingers and toes, so I was lucky I was able to get that high, but we're still making our way around. And by the way, I'm not going to let Jim's Whataburger comment go by. Sorry, Culver's is better, but that's just my honest, humble opinion as he works his way into the... You hear that? My mic's going to... But, nonetheless, I mean, come on. I have to admit, I'm a Midwestern boy. So anyway, Holman coming out of the stadium section through the final couple of corners. Hey, I've got to say this, Jim. At least I like Texas barbecue over anything else. But coming around that penultimate corner, and that's going to be time on Holman as he comes through turn 19 for the final time, sets himself up for turn number 20. He'll come around and see the checkered flag as Joseph Holman becomes the second overall winner here in the Club iRacing Championship. Second place goes to McGovern. He is your pro winner, so he is the second pro winner to win in this season so far. Dan Clark makes it a second win in VIP as he'll come around the final corner and cross the line.
Yeah, great work there, I've got to say, from Holman up in first. And McGovern takes second. Dan Clark, after fighting all the way up the grid, 8 positions up overall, and will take the win there for the VIP class. And he finishes off strong in third. There's Anthony Castillo. He currently comes across in fourth, second in the club membership division, which is going to be some great points for himself on the board. Danny Leonard, 5th position overall, and that's going to be some great points for himself as well. I believe that is the lead position of our team racing class, as Joseph Holman is a part of the club. Blake McGovern is pro. Dan Clark is VIP. Yeah, so Donnie Leonard is indeed your leader of that team division. Great stuff for himself to get some points on the board. Peter McKay comes across in 6th. 7th for Fleerman. Harder will come across in 8th. Yeah, we have the burger himself, Nathan Water, coming across half-eaten down in 9th position. Fortunately, he's made it to the end on those tires and will finish off strong towards the backside. No positions lost, no positions gained. That's not a good or bad thing. And so great stuff there from Nathan Water. Good finish out strong on the grid, and the burger lives to see yet another day.
And of course, now that we have all the cars coming across the line, I can say that we should award extra points to Max Fleerman for saying, quote, I'm sorry, Cameron Cool for agreeing with Peter McKay, though, saying that he was going to be last. Yep, Cameron Cool, shotgun on field, 11th place. Of course, he had his problems, but nonetheless, still able to make the race happen. And that will do it for the first half of the season here at the Circuit of the Americas. What a season we've had so far for the Kellymoss KLÜB iRacing Championship. It gives Joseph Holman his first overall win, but he wins once again in the club category. Blake McGovern second, your winner in pro. Dan Clark makes it 2 races wins so far this season. He's the only one in VIP to have more than 1 race win. Sits in third. Fourth, Anthony Castillo and Dottie Leonard rounds out your top 5.
Yeah, it's great stuff for that top 5. Peter McKay just sits just outside in 6th. Maxwell Fleerman, after some heavy fighting in tire wear, down in 7th position. And then 8th to 11, all a part of your team division. That's Jacob Harder, Nathan Water, Carl Lemcool, and Cameron Cool from 8th down to 11th. And although they may have had a bit of a struggle out on tracks such as Cameron Cool, they made it to the end of the race, which, like I say, one of the most important things. But I believe we are ready for some end of race interviews. And Jeremy, would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
You know what? Why don't you go ahead and go first? I'll give you the honors.
All right, cool. I'm going to grab who I'm actually going to grab. I'll leave Dan Clark to you. You can have a nice chat with him. I'm going to bring Mr. Maxwell Fleerman up. Max, you're live on the Kellymoss KLÜB Championship on Apex Racing TV. Welcome in and congrats on that race. How was the car feeling around COTA?
Do you want the real answer or the TV answer?
I want the most honest truth, man.
Real.
It's tough. It's really tough to nail around here. I personally don't feel like this is a track for sports cars. I think this is a track for open wheel stuff. So really tough to nail the balance on the car around here on the fixed setup. Brake bias is really the only adjustment we have in the car. So some struggles there with trying to get it really balanced. First and actually best lap was lap 4, and then it just kind of came down from there. So definitely hard to nail the line here. A lot of flow involved. So it's tough. Once you're off the line, it's really hard to gain that time back.
And I mean, you had 2 main fights out on circuit, obviously one of those being with Dan Clark. How did that affect the feeling of the car in terms of tire wear?
I think tire wear always feels worse when you're racing someone. You know, when you're out on the long run and there's nobody around you, I think you don't notice it so hard. But when you're actually racing with somebody, that's when you really start to tell, oh, the front's not biting this much, or oh, I don't feel like I can put the power down. And obviously some of that is driver psyche, but some of that is the car, you know, battling here at COTA, especially. It's tough for me personally with so little experience here to know where to pass, where to make those moves. So that's part of the battles too.
And next week around about this time, we head to Virginia International Raceway. How are you feeling for that in the Porsche 992?
I feel good about Virginia. I'd love for it to rain again. You know, as we saw last week, that was the only time that I really had some good pace. So I'd love for it to rain again. Maybe some nighttime. That'd be fun. I like VIR a lot. I think that first section of VIR, I think, is a little reminiscent of COTA here, but I think the rest of it is pretty standard GT track, so it should feel pretty good.
Incredible stuff. And before you head out the commentary box, is there anybody you'd like to thank or mention?
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to the guy that made my livery, Dan. He's actually a wrap guy at Kellymoss. He was willing to take on the project. Jeff Gordon was my favorite NASCAR driver as a kid, so he came together with me and we made this project happen. Huge shout out to all my friends that watch the stream and support me afterwards, even if I don't have great races like today, especially my girlfriend, who is not a sim racer, but she always tunes in and tries to have my back, even if she doesn't understand everything going on. So shout out to all those people.
Incredible stuff. Well, thank you so much for joining us in the commentary box, Max. We'll see you next week at VIR.
Hey, thanks, guys.
And that was Mr. Maxwell Fleerman. Jeremy, the honors is yours.
Yeah, let's go up to Speedy Dan Clark. 2 wins in 3 races for the VIP driver. Also, not your first win here, COTA. Swept the weekend a couple of years ago for a Porsche Sprint Challenge when the 991 class was the top class. Let's start off with this, bud. What was your deciding factor in not qualifying and starting at the back of the pack?
Just bad strategy or no strategy. That was my thing. No strategy.
I've heard that before from you.
First
That's
few laps, I realized, oh yeah, there's an incident limit. I should have really tried to drive this track clean.
Well, here's the thing. There's a difference. You either have to go face Tony Kottman or you've got an incident limit. I think you'd rather have the incident limit at this point.
Yeah, but I'm just so familiar with Tony, though. It's, it's like a brother. Spend so much time with him.
Tony's good people. We always love Tony, but regardless, you had some good moves there. We're watching, obviously, Max Fleerman give you a little bit of difficulty there. Let's talk about that race because we're talking about how you had to worry more about tires as well because you were going up through the pack and having some good battles there.
Yeah, I think I realized halfway through that these tires aren't going to last. So yeah, Max, we had a little battle, and then I made a mistake, and then we had to do it all again. So we were just chatting about it in the green room here. It was all good fun though.
As I say, something that Max said, and I want to get your opinion on this. He feels this is more of an open wheel track and that these big, heavy GT3 cars are just too difficult for this racetrack. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've always thought that. I think my first time at COTA was like the end of 2012, and right away you get the impression of like this is built for like a different scale of car, in the F1 with their extra downforce and speed, and yeah, I imagine if somebody came from that discipline to this, they would, have to relearn it all over again. It's tricky, but no, I think I never do well at COTA. It's one of my worst tracks, I think, and I just finished making dinner and came out here and turned the sim on, so I only have myself to blame, but glad to get some points and have fun and not do too much damage. I was a bit confused about the incident I had with Peter. I had to go watch that on the replays. Didn't really understand what happened there, but it's probably my fault.
I mean, it looked like a typical COTA turn one incident. So that, we sat up here and said, it was racing incident. I'll talk to Peter and be like, what the hell were you thinking later? So not a big deal. All right, next week, VIR. What are your thoughts going into that?
Yeah, that's fun. I like VIR. It's pretty cool. I have to look at my schedule and see what I'm doing.
As I say, I'll be watching on a boat, but yeah, I think I'm going out to the Pacific. We'll talk more about that later. And I think I remember you had some pretty good races there at VIR under one of the series we used to work for.
Yeah, the ITC series 2012. Yeah, I like that place.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yep, good memories.
It's a neat place, but yeah, nonetheless, great to have you, Dan. And if we don't see you next week, we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Stan Clark, your winner in the VIPs. And yeah, you saw that. And yeah, the more I look at it, I just think it was a racing incident. You have Dan trying to go to the inside and Peter trying to protect his line and, took his normal line and one thing led to another and he's facing the wrong way.
Yeah, I think it was just a typical turn one compression, all the drivers trying to make it around the hairpin and things just do slightly get tight. I'm going to bring up Holman. I'm not too sure if that'll be our last. He is our winner of the Club Members Championship. Holman, welcome into the commentary box. You are live on Apex Racing TV. And talk us through overall winner as well. First around track and first in the club membership. Talk us through that race, man. How did it go?
It was one of those races where I just had to shut my brain off when I knew that I was leading and just log laps until 40 minutes hit, because by the time it was lap 20, I think my tires wanted the race to end before I did.
And any pressure from McGovern behind, or were you managing expectations there?
Oh, there was definitely pressure there, but I was seeing him just we were hitting pretty similar lap times as I was obviously monitoring it lap after lap after lap to see what he was going and what I was going and see what I could manage. And as we got farther into the run, I kind of forgot about my rearview mirror a little bit more and started focusing more ahead. And I think that's what really helped me with my overall pace today.
Yeah, I think that is probably the best strategy when you're sitting up in first. A big controversial talking point, which we've had with the other two interviewees, is that they've both mentioned this track hasn't been too great in the GT3 car, and it's not necessarily built around GT3 racing. What's your thoughts on that?
I think we all know that the reason why Circuit of the Americas is set up the way it is mainly because Formula One is the main event here. It is a big challenge for a GT car, just from all the heavy braking points and all the different types of flow that this track really presents to a driver, which creates a lot of challenges. And the amount of tire management that it brought in just from the weight of these GT3 cars brought in a really big challenge today.
And I mean, you seem to have a pretty big following in the virtual grandstand. You've got quite a couple of people cheering you on. Is this some form of paid endorsement, or do you just have a really big fan base?
This is just the collective of all the friends that I've met throughout my years sim racing, and they're just showing up to support, and I can't thank them enough to show up and watch me race today.
Incredible stuff. And before you head out, is anybody you'd like to thank or mention?
Just all the family and friends that have, obviously come to watch and support all the racing that I've done throughout the years.
Hey, Joe, it's Jeremy here in the booth. Real quick, I want to get his opinion on this too, and yours as well, Tristan. I think you might get a kick out of this. Whiskey File says, this is because Tilke loves hairpins and has all the rhythm of an Australian hip-hop Olympian.
That sounds like something accurate. Whiskey File would say. I hear this stuff on the daily from him, so this is on point.
Hey, congratulations on the overall.
Thank you.
And that was Holman. Jeremy, back off to you.
Yeah. So sorry about that. I just wanted to get his opinion on that. And let's go to our pro winner for the fourth time this season. It is the one, the only. Wait a second. Hold on. I've been told I'm wrong once again. Blake McGovern, the second driver to win in the pro class. And I guess it's got to feel good to be on the top step of the podium.
Yeah, it feels great. Help that Aaron wasn't able to make it this week. He's always just got unbelievable pace. So coming into the race, seeing he wasn't there, I kind of knew this week was my shot to get on top. So glad I was able to put a decent race together and finish strong, second overall P1 in class.
You know, most of the race you were up on that rear wing of Holman, but after a while, started falling back. I know the issues was that slowdown penalty coming out of 19, but were the tires starting to go away near the end?
For sure. I kind of got on them at the front and then told myself just be patient, wait for a mistake. But I ended up making a few mistakes and fell off the back of his wing. So then I started kind of pushing to try to catch back up, was taking some pretty aggressive lines, knowing I had 20 incidence points to work with, kind of pushing track limits to try and catch back up to him. And then in doing that, just made a few more mistakes, wasn't able to reel him in. The car got incredibly difficult to drive at the end. And I think I got up to 17 incidence points. So the last few laps, I told myself just keep the car between the white lines and make sure you get it to the end without a drive-through penalty and hang on to that second overall.
Can I tell you a little secret between us girls?
Yeah.
Your coach realized about the first couple laps, oops, I need to worry about my incident points too. So it's not just you. At least a student is thinking the same lines as your coach.
Yeah, those were definitely lines that I've been taught by Dan. I've done 2 races at COTA. Both of them were Dan coached me. And so those were definitely some speedy Dan lines that I was trying to take and rack up the incidence points.
Yep, that doesn't surprise me nonetheless. All right, we're halfway through the season. VIR's next week. What are your thoughts on going to the historic track?
I'm excited. I haven't done too much racing at VIR. I haven't had a chance to race there in real life. So haven't done a ton of sim work there. So we'll definitely need to put in some practice over the next 7 days to get my pace in the right spot, but look forward to the challenge.
Blake, congratulations. Hard fought win, and we thought you were going to be challenging there for the overall lead, but either way, second place overall, a win in the pro class still has to feel good going into next week. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And with that, we're going to call time on this race. Tristan, as we said, once again, the number car count didn't matter because we saw some great racing all throughout the field.
Yeah, and it's proved it yet again. We've seen it now for the fourth time running in this Kellymoss KLÜB Championship, that numbers really do not matter when you've got great drivers around. The low amount of incidents. I mean, we literally had one portion of driver contact, and that was between Dan Clark and Peter McKay. And I mean, we've already classified that basically as a racing incident. And it's just absolutely phenomenal racing to see what they can do and convert such a small grid, which in a normal standard online lobby would get pretty boring. But yet, Kellymoss KLÜB iRacing Championship, there's zero boredom here whatsoever for us and both the virtual grandstands. So I'm super excited to see what we do at VIR next week.
And that's the thing. The 992s at the VIR, it puts on, sometimes it puts on a processional with a lot of these groups, like you said. But when it comes to the Kellymoss KLÜB iRacing Championship, I have a feeling this is going to be one of the better races at VIR. And really, I can't wait to sit back and watch you and Charles call this race. I know that you two will have a fun race, and you'll be calling lead for this Kellymoss race, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. So once again, I want to thank you all for watching here on the Kellymoss channel. My name is Jeremy Scott, Tristan Herbst alongside with Jim Cunningham back in the booth. And remember, always keep it pointed forward, keep it between the ditches, and always keep it greasy side down. These guys will see you next week here on the Kellymoss channel from the Virginia International Raceway. Take care.